Some towns, they just charge $50. There's no time period on it. You're just charged. It's just a permit that they're paying for.
Mr. Chairman, may I make him a remark?
Sir?
I'm hearing trying to match towns on fee schedules, staying with the segmented time periods. I think that's the wrong question or the wrong way of going about it. And I think I mentioned this earlier, which is instead of trying to match against various towns like you do in everything else, well, this town charges this town charges that, so we should be charging this. I think the right question is, what is the actual cost to the town to cover an activity of this sort? What is it that the town must do, and what should the fee structure be for that? When, under the current system, if you have a food truck here in town, what is the town doing, other than just collecting the money and filling out a piece of, or several pieces of paper? Really, it should be just a simple pass-through. We need to know that you're here. If something happens, here's the cost to provide that information and to file it away.
Skip, it's a good question, thank you. The chiefs are here. I hate to put you guys on the spot for a second. Could you guys both come up here for me, please, just so it's on the record?
I think you enjoyed putting us on the spot.
We wouldn't have it any other way.
The resident brings up a good question. So a food truck wants to come into town, fills out the application. What impact or what responsibilities does the police have, if anything, with that business? What does the fire department, if anything, has associated with that business?
I think we were just having some of that conversation, but obviously the potential is there for increased traffic. We really don't know where the truck would be setting up. Would it be on a public way or beside a public way or in a parking lot? Would it be drawing additional traffic or have any of those types of concerns? As far as fire safety goes, they have to meet certain requirements for that. So something I think that may be important down the road as we continue these conversations is maybe some type of permitting process. So it would give us an idea of where they would be setting up, making sure that they would meet all the requirements that we would have or that we would need to have. And then give us some general knowledge of how they would be operating as well.
Chief?
Yeah, and I would concur and say the same thing. My concern would be, I think they're welcome addition to the town. My concern is they're in a parking lot and the owner of the parking lot says, I want them out of here. Typically, they would say, well, where can we go to set up? I don't know where to send them, Does that mean they could go to, say, Lily Pond and set up in the dirt section? And then we've got cars stopping to, patronize them there to buy their food, but then what does that cost? So I think if we had an area or there was some kind of permitting process, there's a place for them to go to set up that we could do that. Because I don't know where, right now, I guess they can just set up anywhere in town, right, is what we're saying. There's no jurisdiction for that.
And obviously we deal with food vendors at special events. Some of those are food trucks. So absolutely, we're not opposed to it, but I think just by the nature of the truck being mobile and traveling to different venues or setting up in different spots, that may create some logistical issues for us.
Does the fire department or or your deputy have any responsibilities at inspecting any of these establishments?
We do at the special events especially, and I'm not quite sure how we would do that with a food truck. I guess it would depend where it was licensed and where it was established. And then you have a food truck that comes into your community on a Sunday morning and sets up. We may never even know about it unless it was some type of problem or a complaint.
Can I just ask, you said you were in Laconia today?
Yeah.
Do they have restrictions of where you can be in Laconia or just?
So I needed permission from the owner of where I parked, and then I called the fire department and asked Laconia if I needed a fire permit, and they just said if I have my, what's the word? No,
Your permit, your.
for the fire department.
Oh,
This-
your certificate.
For, they needed to know that I had a certified fire
Okay.
extinguishers and.
Fire suppression system.
Yes, yes,
System
that's
is
the
in the
word.
vehicle.
Yeah.
All right, so you were in a business parking lot? So you just got the owner's permission?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, so that would be fine, you know, I guess if there was some kind of process in place to let these vendors know, just if you wanna set up in a parking lot, you have to just get permission, so then we, you know, we can deal with that, and that's fine, we know, so. I mean, I don't personally, the only thing we're gonna deal with is if they call, if they're on private property, somebody wants them off or out of the parking lot, or if we get a traffic complaint. So if, you know, if they're set up well off where cars can go and frequent them and partake in what they need to do and don't cause a traffic issue, you know, I don't have any other issues.
Chief, does the fire department or your health inspector or health officer have to inspect these businesses in general?
To be honest, when we do special events, he does. He inspects all of those food booths and trucks like that may be at Soul Fest.
Sure.
Or even at the Village Field for Old Home Day, but I'm not really sure what we would do for a food truck that just comes into town for one day. That's a new one on me, anyway.
Well, going along that thought, is the thought that you're supposed to be inspecting those trucks as well?
They have to meet state health regulations, for sure, yeah.
So you're supposed to inspect those trucks?
Somebody is.
So for instance, would it be somebody from the town or somebody from the state? Because you're telling me that in Soul Fest and any other special event, you guys are responsible for doing that, correct?
Right. And
You-
yes. So,
Why,
for
why,
example,
why is that you're responsible and not the state?
we can do the initial inspection, and then if we find any major violations, we would certainly call the state in. And I believe that the state has overall jurisdiction in those types of matters, but we can work as their agent. You know, recently we had a restaurant in town that had some issues. We called the state in to take action on the restaurant.
So if I hear you correctly, what you're saying is this is a well-established process that a business, a food truck specifically, comes into town. You actually do inspect these. You do spend labor and time and resources inspecting these.
We do, in different situations.
Yep. Well, if somebody came into town on a mobile truck and they were going from section to section, and they were getting held to the same standards as somebody else who is at a stationary section, that's a disparity there too, correct?
Correct.
And at the end of the day, the public may not be getting served correctly if these establishments aren't being inspected. Is that correct?
That's possible. If we didn't know about them,
Right.
if they were, you know, coming in, it was like a one-hit weekend type of thing, we may not know about that. There's certainly no permit process in place for that at this point in time.
So when we say the question of, you know, these permits, it's just a flat fee of $25 to just process the paperwork. That's not necessarily valid, correct? There are other expenses and resources that are going to have to be, or that may be incurred to inspect these establishments. Is that correct?
Sure.
Thank you, gentlemen. Do you have any questions for the chiefs?
No, I don't.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Rex, can I address that, what they just talked about? It's all it's all in here. Where the locations,
Go ahead.
it's, Joe Werner, Gary Circle. It's all in the packet that you guys hear, as far as locations, where they can go. She has to be certified by the state. Department of Health has certified it and all that. They have to provide a copy of that to the town hall. They have to provide a copy of insurance. All those questions, and even as far as locations, where they can go, it's all down on this, what do I call this?
It's already in
The
the ordinance.
RSA, it's already in the ordinance.
Correct.
So,
I want to be clear about something, Joe.
okay,
I'm in favor of this,
yes,
okay? That's not the question.
yeah,
If anyone has been attending the selectmen meetings for the last 12 years, I'm the biggest pain to these guys because I constantly have the same phrase. The Board of Selectmen should be a help to business and not a hindrance. But at the same time, the Board of Selectmen represents the entirety of the town of Guilford, and we have to make sure that we are covering costs for processing any kind of business or services that the town is offering. So that's all we're trying to get to, is what is fair and equitable for these fees. And that's what we're trying to correct today. We all are in agreement that when we looked back at these fees, we thought that they were not correct, they weren't valid, they weren't appropriate.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here today, to try to correct it. And if the proposed fees from $25 daily to $500 annually is still not the correct number, that's what we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
So if we can reduce that a little bit more to help business, that's what we're trying to do. That's why we're asking these questions.
Yeah, yeah, and I just wanted to point out that, you know, it doesn't.
It's already in there.
Okay.
I agree.
Thanks, Joe.
Croc TV.